What's up, Magic Makers? Drew here, and today I want to talk about my go-to spell components. Now, this is my second version of this video. Last time I just wanted to do my go-tos, but it turned out, it's a really long list, really, at the end of the day. Because there's different elements. It's not just herbs. It's herbs, crystals, oils, incense, the whole nine. And the video ran longer than I wanted it to. And in order to fit everything in, I just had to rush through everything and I couldn't really talk about anything. So I decided to change it to my top fives. So in general, top five, and then more specific in each of those areas. There's no point in me saying this is what I go to without giving any sort of explanation as to why, because I know that these are my go-tos, but they're not everybody else's. So sharing what I go to and why I thought was more important than just sharing a list of what I go to on a regular basis. So in general, my top fives are, tools, incense and oils, herbs and resins, crystals, and then what I call oddities. So breaking that down, tools, we're going to start with tools. So one of the very first things I think of most times when it comes to working magic is candles. I love candle magic. Obviously, as any witch would, I work with many different kinds of candles. Here's a pillar that it needs to go back on the altar after my mom, because this is my dark half of the year candle. There was a really cool picture of Carnenos on here, but you can't tell anymore. But then, votives and tea lights, and I work with birthday candles all the time. Love a birthday candle for a quick, easy spell. These are Hanukkah candles. I work with Hanukkah candles all the time. But of course, the first thing I typically go for are chime candles. And I always have a myriad of chime candles. I've actually moved more into working with these exquisite candles. They are bigger, they burn a bit longer, which is good or bad depending on what you want, really. But they cost less per candle than your average chime candle. So I got a whole big case of them. I'm working with these, except they don't have gray or brown. And those are two colors that I work with regularly. For me, brown is associated with family and home, and gray is sort of a neutralizer. And I really like to have both of those in my supply. So I still have to buy those in the regular chime size and pay more for them, unfortunately. The second thing very often work with in my spellcraft would be what I would refer to as vessels. Typically that's going to be glass. I like to work with glass. So of course I always collect these. I get them typically at my local thrift store. I got this there as well. I like to shop around and reuse and get a discount. But I like to use this kind of thing for spell crafting a lot too. As a matter of fact, I like to keep old jars. I use this kind of thing in spellcraft all the time. Wash it out, keep it, and use it as a spell jar. I also often like to use these little cotton bags. I don't really like to use the organza bags unless it's going to be just sitting on my altar or something like that, or like a dream pillow or something. But I like to bury these in the ground, and it is cotton, so it'll take a while, but eventually it will break down. Next is cauldrons, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I am a collector witch, and I collect cauldrons. It's one of the things I collect. So let's see. This was my very, very first cauldron. It's metal. I wouldn't call it cast iron. I don't know what it's made out of, but it was a good size, so I was happy with that. And this was my burning cauldron for years. And still occasionally, if I'm doing something small, I'll use it. But mostly it's a decorative thing at this point. This little cast iron cauldron was gifted to me from a friend. It's secondhand. It was hers. She used to burn candles in it because she's not actually a practicing witch. But she gifted it to me because I am. But I typically use it just to store like smudge type sticks and stuff in because it's so tiny. This is something my husband found at our local flea mall ages ago. He's got 3 cauldrons of his own, but this one is shared between us. But it's just used as an offering dish. I redress the altar once a month and I use a different dish every time. This is brass. I got it at my local thrift store, and this is what I refer to as my working cauldron. If I'm making like an herbal blend or something, I will do it in this cauldron. This is our newest acquisition. Isn't this so cool? $8 at our local flea mall just this past weekend. It is just a decorative piece, but $8. He wanted 10, and my husband and I looked at each other for a second. We hesitated, and he was like, how about 8? And we're like, yes, please. I don't know if I'll ever use it for anything. To me, this looks like something you put a curse in, you know? I don't know. I just love it. And lastly is my big cauldron. This one my husband got for me at a pagan pride years and years and years ago now. It probably cost him at least $70. I don't know. But even if you look in here now, I don't know if you're going to be able to. There's a star anise in here. I don't know if you'll be able to. Oh yeah. Oh well, you got a glimpse of it before it all fell down. Oh, this is my burning cauldron. I save all the ash. I use the ash in later spells when I need ash. It smells rather campfire smoky up in there, but that's my burning cauldron. That's usually sitting back here, and the one that I use for all of my spells where I need to burn. Next is mortar and pestles, another thing that I collect. This little guy was actually my son's. Isn't it cute? When he was little, my youngest, both of the boys had one, but my youngest isn't interested in this anymore. He still likes crystals and stuff, but he doesn't care about, he's not going to be a witch, I don't think. At any rate, he re-gifted it to me, gave it back to me. You know, I'm like, if you don't want to, give it to me. And it lives in the bathroom. It's a decorative piece. This was my daughter's. She is actually interested in magic and does practice from time to time, though I don't know if she identifies as a witch exactly. But she just moved across the country and she couldn't take everything with her. She ended up giving me a lot of stuff that we had originally given her. She did keep all of her witchy books, but most of the herbs and some of her crystals and the mortar and pestle made their way back to me. Some candles. This was my very first mortar and pestle. It is beat all up. This used to be used for herbs and stones. Oh, I can tell you how many times I ground kyanite and selenite and tourmaline in this thing. Talk about hand cramping. This one was my husband's first mortar and pestle, but if you can see, it broke. So he gifted it to me. He told me he had faith in me that I would know what needed to be done with it. And I'm like, I'm just keeping it. It's a decorative piece. It can be an offering bowl, or I can put some, you know, whatever. I can use this for lots of things. It's mainly a decorative piece. Even right here, it's chipped. He just abused it. He has a better one now. This was also gifted to me. This mortar and pestle I've never used, and I don't know if I will. It would have to be a very special working. This actually belonged to Jana. She was known as Artemis Nightingale here on YouTube, and after she passed away, it's been nearly a year now, we're creeping up, her husband was kind enough to send this to me so that I would have something that was hers. And so this is a special piece in my collection. This was also gifted to me. This is an antique mortar and pestle. It's made of wood. I love this thing. It is purely decorative. It was a Yule gift from one of my dear friends and my old boss lady when I worked at Compass Rose. This is my newest acquisition. It's my little pentacle square. I thought it was cool. This I purely use for resins. Big Mama was gifted to me years and years ago by the same woman who gifted me the antique mortar and pestle for a different Yule. I have actually broken the pestle. It fell on the floor from a very high height and broke, but we used 2-part epoxy and it's great and it's fine. And she is used purely for herbs and resins. She is also my most used mortar and pestle. And the newest acquisition just before the square mortar and pestle was this guy. And he is Sir Gregor, or the Mountain. And he is used purely for stone. So when I grind kyanite or selenite or black tourmaline or even like pumice and terracotta, anything like that is done in him. And I love my big ones. I'm so happy to have them. Of course, Big Mama, I don't know how much she costs or anything like that. This, of course, is a Mexican style mole mortar and pestle, and I want to say it was less than $15, but it was definitely less than $20. Use them all the time. I'm so happy to have them. And the last tool that I go to regularly for nearly any working I do is, well, for every working I do, is my wand. Now, I do have 3 wands. Actually, I have many crystal wands, but I don't use them, and for directing energy in magic. This is an apple wood wand. When we had to cut some branches from our apple tree, I didn't do anything to it. It's rough. I like it that way. I did poly it, but I made a handle out of polymer clay and a little charm with a piece of nemine on there. I don't really use that. The same for this. This was a waterlogged piece of driftwood out in the Sound, and it just wouldn't leave my hand once I picked it up. So I put this beautiful red rutilated quartz point on here. There's some amber and there's a piece of jet back here, and then I just put some purple ribbon on. But again, I don't really use this for directing energy. A dear friend of mine recently, very recently, gifted me this beautiful piece of amethyst, and the lighting is terrible today. The hurricane is coming. I apologize. But I decided it needed to be a wand, and this wand I use every single time I cast now. It just fits in my hand so perfectly. I needed a small wand. Those big wands just don't do it for me. I like them, they're pretty, but they're mostly aesthetic at this point. But this, I actually use every single time I cast circle. And there's a piece of hematite in the bottom, and the body of it is made of copper, and I just embellished it with polymer clay. So those are my absolute go-to tools that I use most often in my practice. Next, my top 5, incense and resins. And I combine these together because I think it's like 6 altogether with all of them. So my go-to incense, let's see, patchouli, and I like this one right now. It's Sunzai, I believe. Yeah, and I like Sunzai anyway. It smells so good. And I usually, the only thing I really use this incense for any kind of working is money, prosperity, abundance, something to do with my business, something like that. Rose is another one that I work with really regularly, and this is my favorite. It's by, I call them Triloka. It's the Isis Rose, and I also use these little rose rope incense sometimes, but obviously I use them for love, but I'll use them for anything like peace, harmony, happiness, anything like that. Dragon's Blood, this one's by Nature, and this is Hem. I love Dragon's Blood incense. It just gets me in the mood to do magic, period. But I also consider it to be great for protection and as an energy amplifier for whatever it is I'm doing. I also regularly work with Dragon's Blood resin for the same reasons. I like to regularly work with frankincense resin to raise vibration and anything to do with protection or blessings. I usually have a frankincense myrrh blend incense, but I use it quite a bit and I'm out. I need to get more. Speaking of myrrh, and to me, myrrh has a bit of a darker energy than frankincense. Maybe that's just me, but that's how I feel about it. But I typically go to myrrh for things like warding and protection, and also purification. Lastly, there's amber. I love Hem amber incense. I actually have some amber sandalwood by a different company, and I do work with amber resin. I just didn't feel like digging it out. It's all the way in the very bottom in the back of my cabinet. But I like amber for things like healing and clarification and anything to do with optimism or happiness or anything like that. Next are what I call oddities. It's because they don't really fit in any of the, I mean, if they were going to go in any category, it'd be herbs, but they're not herbs. So I love to work with magnetic sand. I don't know that you're going to be able to get a better look than, it's so pretty. And yeah, it's magnetic sand. And so I use it for drawing magic mostly. Here is some terracotta dust. I love working with terracotta dust. It's so much easier to create than brick dust. It has a high iron content. It's great for any type of defensive magic, but it's also great for change and grounding and lots of other things. I am not going to name all the properties of everything. I'm just kind of going into what I typically use them for. Sulfur is great for any kind of defensive magic, protection, warding, anything like that. And you can get it really cheaply at like your local hardware store, Lowe's, something like that, rather than buying it at like a metaphysical shop. Salt. What witch doesn't work with salt? It's easy to get your hands on, it's cheap, it's great for purification and for banishing, and I also like to use it for absorption. It will hold energy in it. That does mean that you need to be careful how you dispose of it. And lastly is graveyard dirt. This is dirt from my mother's grave. The most interesting thing to me about graveyard dirt is that the dirt actually takes on the energy of whomever is occupying the grave. So, you know, if you want protection, a soldier's grave would be great. If someone you knew was a gambler, whether they were good at it or not, that dirt might be good for luck. Things like that. This is my mother's. So for me, I know that it's really great for loyalty, love, and protection. Now I want to talk about herbs. If you watched my conjuring cabinet video, you'll know that I work with tons of herbs. This was really hard, but in a way it wasn't hard at the same time. I would have loved to make the list longer. This is why the last video got out of hand. There was just too much that I regularly go to. So I just picked the top 5. Tonka bean. Tonka bean is always one of the first things that pops in my brain for magic, particularly certain types of magic. Oh, it's so aromatic, guys. You can use it for cooking. Oh, it smells so good. I love it. Like certain smells say magic. This is one of them for me. The 3 things that first pop to mind for me when it comes to tonka bean is love, money, and wishes. And I most often use it with money, prosperity, business, stuff like that. Lemon balm. I have mine are whole leaves. So I pick one that's all gnarled up. At any rate, I just put the whole leaves in because we grow it ourselves, and it doesn't smell that great, but if you crumple this, it smells like Fruity Pebbles. It's the most amazing. It smells like candy or cereal or something. It's amazing. Lemon balm does so much. Love, luck, success, banishing, healing, as well as happiness. And I personally grab it for success all the time. I like to add an element of success to my spell work. So there's almost always something, because there are several herbs. I know cinnamon is one. There's several herbs that are also associated with success, and I always have some of that going on usually. And longevity, that's another one that's important to me. Mint. We grow our own mint as well. And of course it smells great, even if before you crumple it up. We grow chocolate mint and sweet mint. I go to it for money, healing, prosperity, offerings. I use it for offerings all the time, but it's also great for protection and traveling. Jasmine, can you even see that? I just think jasmine is beautiful. I use it in a lot of my oils because it's a very diverse herb and it's beautiful in the bottle. Love, money, psychic dream, healing, protection, banishing. Again, I'm only naming a few, the ones that I typically go for. And the last one that just had to be in my top 5 is High John. It smells amazing. Right now, it smells a little smoky almost, but when you break into it, put it in your mortar and pestle, I want to eat it. This and tonka, oh my gosh. My prosperity blends with clove and cinnamon and tonka and High John, they smell amazing. So money, love, success, happiness, luck, defensive magic. Again, very diverse. This is why I chose these, because not only are they ones that I go to a lot, part of the reason I go to them a lot is many of them are very diverse. Next are oils, and I immediately gravitate to oils that I have made myself, as well as certain essential oils. So I'm just going to quickly, like, here's my Black Cat oil I made. I have a video up for that. Here's my Open Doors oil I made. I also have a video up for that. This is what I call my Come To Me oil, but apparently that's a hoodoo name. It's a drawing oil. I also have a video up for that. This is a quartz oil that I got the recipe from Lady Grave Dancer, and I'm sure, you know, that video's, at least it's privated at least, I don't know. A selenite oil, same thing, Lady Grave Dancer recipe. Here is my intuition oil. I do not have a video up on that. Next time I make it, I suppose I could easily do so. Here's my banishing oil. This is my Better Business oil. If I'm honest, I can't for the life of me remember what this is, but I can see what the ingredients are. So I don't know what the purpose was, but this is a love oil. This is a love oil. It's a rose scented oil, and there's no other reason for me to do that. Love and happiness. So that's what that is. This is my lodestone oil. I actually did not make this myself. It smells, I cannot describe how this, it's so amazing. I use it very sparingly. You can see there's hardly any left. This was actually, there was another practitioner in my local area who passed away, and his wife sold his things, and this is one of the things I got. Bottled and blessed in Jerusalem. It's blessed oil from Jerusalem. When I was working at When I was working at Compass Rose, one of our regular customers went to Jerusalem and she brought this back for me. One for me, one for my boss lady. It doesn't really have a fragrance, but it kind of does. This is old oil and it hasn't gone minky, so that's something. But this is like, it's so old. And then, of course, you guys have seen my essential oils. But let's see, my go-to essential oils. So frankincense oil, this one, I'm not really crazy about the way this one smells. It's made by Nature's Truth. I do have a Sun's Eye one, but of course that's not 100% essential oil. It's a fragrance oil, but depending on what I'm doing, and for all the same properties listed earlier. Cinnamon oil is another one that I go to a lot, but I'm out. So, but cinnamon or clove. I have a clove oil here. Usually cinnamon though, for prosperity work, stuff like that. So cinnamon is a great energy amplifier. It has properties of success and growth and expansion. It's associated with business workings, and it is also good for healing work. So it's very, very versatile. Orange oil. I love orange essential oil. I use it all the time when I make oils. For one, it smells amazing, but it's great for love, luck, money, divination, creativity, and inspiration, as well as focus and longevity. And my number one go-to oil is cedarwood oil. Use it all the time. I'm not even going to try to remember all these. I'm just going to read them to you. So I use it because it's associated with wisdom, breaking spells, clarity, focus, longevity, protection, calling spirits. And then my absolute favorite thing about it is that it's good for like clearing energy, but it's also good for creating sacred space and then strengthening an energetic boundary, an energy field. So it's the perfect thing to use for creating sacred space for spell work or anything like that. Lastly, my top 5 crystals. Now this was, again, hard and not hard. These are definitely my top 5 crystals, but I would love the list to be longer. So obvious, no surprise to anyone, clear quartz. Clear quartz is just your all-purpose, can do everything. It's a great amplifier for anything. It's great for clarity, and you can program it for any purpose you see fit. So yeah, clear quartz. No brainer. Next is another one that I don't think any of these will be a huge surprise really, but amethyst. Amethyst is another one that's kind of all-purpose. I mean, it is a form of quartz, but it does have more distinct properties, I suppose. It is also programmable, but it's great for work with healing, for protection, purification, intuition, psychic stuff, and also anything to do with spirituality, spiritual connection to the divine. Citrine. Another form of quartz, but again, more specific in its properties. This is the stone of manifestation. What are we trying to do when we're crafting our magic? We are trying to manifest. So always a great ally. Also though, great for clarity, creativity, abundance, and longevity. Smoky quartz is a must for me. It is absolutely a must have. And I kind of wanted black tourmaline to be on this list too, but this is above for me. Because not only is it also another stone of manifestation, it is a stone of sort of practicality. So manifesting wishes, desires, dreams in the real world, in the mundane, in practical ways. It's great for grounding. But most importantly, a lot of stones will protect from what people call negative. I call disharmonious. Many stones will protect from disharmonious energy. They'll deflect it, they'll build a shield, they'll just whatever. There are also stones that will absorb it and hold on to it. Smoky quartz is kind of the best of both worlds. Smoky quartz pulls in disharmonious energies, but it doesn't just keep them. It transmutes them and turns them into energies that are harmonious and that are useful and good in the world. So this is a stone of transmutation. It is an excellent tool for any witch, particularly if you're empathic or anything like that. Smoky quartz is a wonderful thing to have on hand. An absolute must in my book. And then lastly, I don't know, you guys can kind of see that? Let me move my face out. This is rough and raw. This is polished. So lodestone looks a lot like hematite when it's polished, but it's magnetic. I'll put in a little clip of me playing with them. So if you don't know, lodestone is a natural magnet. Did you see that? Isn't that cool? So it's a natural magnet, so obviously it's good for drawing, but it can also be used for repelling. It's great for grounding. And this is a stone that balances polarities and brings things into alignment with its magnetic properties. So again, all of these things are very useful in spellcraft. So those are my top 5 crystals that I have to have and that I go to most frequently in my practice. I would love to hear your thoughts. If anyone wants to share in the comments what their sort of go-tos are, or anybody who has a channel wants to make a video and show theirs, I would love to see that. I am always interested in learning how people use things and why they do so. Oh, there's one last thing, and I didn't really know what category to put it in. I guess it could have gone into tools, but that would have made it 6. Either way, it's an extra. It's an extra. These, my symbols. So I use these all the time in my spellcraft. I print out symbols that are relevant to my spellcraft and I laminate them. I have a laminator, but you can just buy laminate sheets that are sticky at a lot of stores. This is the 7 Archangel seal. That, of course, was a pentacle. Here we have the Catechus for healing. This is they call it a money charm. It's for prosperity and stuff of that nature. Metatron's cube. It's basically creation. Sacred geometry. I'm into it. This is one of Solomon's seals, and I have it written on the back. It's the 34th seal, and it's to repress the pride and arrogance of those standing in the way of the owner's wishes and plans. That can come in handy. The Ouroboros, Evil Eye. This is the 19th seal. It gives the power to open all doors. And this is the 9th seal for treating all kinds of diseases and pain. So all of those are useful to me, and with them being laminated, I can use them over and over again. I can get oils and wax and herbs and whatever all over them. It doesn't matter. They're safe. So I use these very regularly in my crafting. Okay, that's it. This video is probably more than long enough as it is. I'm going to try to edit it down, but I did want to share my top 5s. So thanks so much for hanging out, guys. And until next time, much love and gratitude.